This is Pharaoh's house.
Greetings, kindred souls and kind strangers. Before continuing, I have to make a few corrections. In the previous Podisode, I said to be aware of your doors and to control your doors. And I mentioned that the ears are a doorway of sort, but that they are technically not entry points. However, they are entry points for sound waves and for air even, and sometimes for oil if there's an obstacle. The skin can receive and therefore is also an entry point for select inputs such as light, water, air, and some very minute microscopic water or oil soluble nutrients, or in the case of a medication through a cream or a patch, a synthetic pharmaceutical. And speaking of which, I published a blog article about safe disposal of old medications or pharmaceuticals. The article was written by one of my news source outlets. The article did not indicate any drug categories, but it suggested supposed better or best ways to get rid of OTC meds and prescription meds. OTC stands for over the counter. I immediately thought of hazardous wastes or industrial chemicals which are used in our food and water supply. And I recall an image of some kind in the past, not that long ago, of a city worker covered in hazmat protective gear pouring fluoride powder into a municipal drinking water system tank. Anyway, most toxic substances are toxic, no matter what their physical state, unless they become inert, neutralized, or their toxic properties can be diffused in large amounts of water, air, or some other human-safe substance. You see, I respect life. It's a gift with purpose and challenge, and there is an order to this place we are told to call a planet. Call that order universal law. And that's the law that man did not write, neither did mankind, but probably it exists within most of us. Within me is universal law, so I respect the law that states what we consume returns to nature. For example, poison in, poison out. If a substance that is supposed to repair you poses a threat to soil, water, or fauna when you flush it or trash it, then it was deadly from the get-go or from the start. The old drugs or meds apparently became more lethal over time as they sat on a shelf somewhere or in a box or a bag. A few moons ago, I recall news stories about public drinking water, rivers, and streams becoming polluted with residue from pharmaceuticals like hormone meds, birth control pills, and opiate drugs. And it wasn't just from thrown away meds, it was primarily from human waste, as in urine and other bodily fluids, flushed into sewer systems, as well as waste dumped into landfills. There was so much pharmaceutical waste, according to some reports, that people and aquatic animals were being altered or affected hormonally. All living creatures eat something and then release a byproduct or waste product. Under healthy circumstances, the byproduct or waste that we release back into nature is not supposed to be toxic. Typically, your soul vessel or body does not create toxins unless you are contaminated or polluted by your so-called environment or toxins that you have been ingesting. Effluent treatment facilities are typically part of a city infrastructure. Hundreds of thousands or even millions of city-dwelling residents release drug residue toxins and microorganisms into sewer waste systems from their own bodies. And that waste is processed factory-style by treatment plants. But apparently toxic residue like pharmaceutical toxins are not completely filtered out by treatment processing. At least that's what that article that I'm talking about implies. And by sites like My Old Meds or Know Your OTCs. You can look those sites up. I think it's myoldmeds.com and knowyouroTCs.org. It's not just pharmaceutical residue. It's also the toxic, genetically altered, chemicalized food that most consume and expel at least 3 or more times daily. I don't doubt that these toxins are altering our natural world and the people in it, but I do know that we are not supposed to violate ourselves and not supposed to relay toxic byproducts into land, water, or air. This means we have an obligation to safeguarding our own optimal health as well as how we connect with ecology, which sustains life. There's another saying that goes garbage in, garbage out. Our so-called bodies are not designed to be the garbage disposers of this realm, even though many do behave like living dumpsters and trash incubators. There are actually creatures designed for such tasks. They range from microscopic single-cell organisms to larger animals. We communicate with the world around us in so many ways, often just by being present. This interaction was never meant to be a detriment or act like a detriment, like releasing toxic drug residue into land or water. When we communicate positively or holistically with so-called nature, and make no mistakes about it, nature is just the generic word for this realm we exist in and on. What's the motto of Pharaoh's house? Time to know is now. Well, the time is now to bring on a holistically purposeful way of interacting with nature and one another. I'll sum what I said up by saying our soul vessels reflect nature. Each of us is a living universe. When we deliberately, when we deliberately or carelessly poison ourselves by what we do or think, we destroy our personal universes and we negatively affect those living universes around us. In addition to the big one we all exist inside of or on. And no, it's not your mama or your papa, but if you choose to call it mama or papa, that's your personal belief. Just keep in mind that if you're the child and the earth or so-called earth is your mama, you're not supposed to feed your mama. Your mama's supposed to feed you if you're a child. Think about it. As you plan your personal system overhaul, these are things to do and know. As a side note, what about detoxification and cleansing? Isn't that deliberately putting toxins into our ecology? It would seem on the surface that not only is it so, but that it is necessary. It's a necessary evil, if you will. In reality, cleansing and detoxification were never meant to rid you of, for example, heavy metals, opiates, synthetic estrogen hormones, excess alcohols, plastics, contaminated blood, etc. When you consume and absorb from non-toxic polluted sources, you release residue that can be easily filtered, broken down, and absorbed by plants, organisms, minerals. But some substances were never meant to exist in nature, and they are near impossible to break down, or they kill crucial players in the cycle. So you could infer that self-cleansing is natural, but detoxification is meant to be a process only used during emergency or abnormal circumstances. We have adapted to existing in toxic worlds, thus self-detoxification has become a so-called norm. And remember, my shared thoughts on things or acts we adapt to on the long term. They are unnatural. We just accept them as natural. Ready your brain to receive a scientific definition. A zoonosis or zoonosis is an infectious disease caused by a pathogen that has jumped from an animal to a human. Typically, the first infected human transmits the infectious agent to at least one other human, who in turn infects others. Major modern diseases such as Ebola virus disease and salmonellosis are zoonosis, or as some say, zoonosis. Zoonosis or zoonosis is another name for zoonotic disease. As the WHO and the Wiki stated, it's a type of disease that passes from animal to human. I'm adding that in because it can pass from insect to human too. Some of these types of diseases do not sicken the animal, but will sicken the human. and the WHO and the Wiki. Well, the WHO is the World Health Organization, by the way. Okay, now that you have that definition, listen to this excerpt from an article on thescientist.com. Mind you, it is 4 paragraphs, so please listen closely. Okay. In a study published today, April 15th, obviously it's not April 15th, in Cell, researchers describe their progress in producing a human-monkey chimeric embryo in an effort to determine whether having a more closely related host would allow the human cells to have a greater presence, thus paving the way for a better understanding of what cell types they can become, and possibly, in the far future, a potential way to cope with the shortage of human organs available for transplant. The scientists made the chimeras by injecting human extended pluripotent stem or EPS cells, also known as expanded potential stem cells. Keep that word in mind, potential, into early embryos of cynomolgus monkeys. Macaca, that's what it says, Macaca fasciolaris is the term. The team grew the chimeras for up to 20 days in culture and found that up to 7% of the embryo cells can trace their lineage to the human EPS cells. EPS cells generated by treating pluripotent cell stems with factors that help them both maintain pluripotency and contribute to embryonic and extraembryonic tissues were developed by Juan Carlos Ispusua Belmonte, a stem cell biologist at the Salk Institute, remember Jonas Salk, for biological studies, and colleagues in 2017. Quote, a precise confirmation of the cell's developmental potency can only be achieved in vivo. But chimeric assays are not easy, says Berna Sozin, a stem cell biologist at Yale University, who was not involved in the study. In the past, researchers have had limited chimeric success, at least in part due to the evolutionary distance between humans and mouse, or pig hosts, she adds. In the new study, Ispusua Belmonte's team collaborated with Tao Tan of the Kunming University of Science and Technology in China and colleagues to tackle the challenge of evolutionary distance. They used a strategy described in 2 studies in 2019 by Tan's group and another team that allows researchers to grow monkey embryos in culture for up to 20 days. When the recent popular virus made popular media, its spread was attributed to a zoonotic disease scenario involving consumption of bat flesh. When it comes to chimeras, for example, my people were taught to stay clear of them. It's the main reason we do not eat leavened bread. Yeast, for example, has violated leavening and altered the wheat germ and corrupted it. That's why I don't eat wheat and I don't recommend it. What I gleaned from the passage just read was that those scientists in the U.S. working with scientists in China rediscovered how to construct a viable, stabilized, chimeric complex molecular structure, one that could be repeated and altered according to desire or plan for various applications. Obviously, it has been known for eons how to do this with plants. So now it's been done with something other. The author of the article wants readers to only believe that these animal-human chimera experiments are mainly for growing organs designated for transplantation. We should know better than that. In fact, a quote by Yale stem cell biologist Berna Sozin reads, researchers around the world are trying to understand EPS cells, but we need to collect much more data before we can actually start to discuss any potential clinical applications. Unquote. These my dads make it hurt. We'll just take a brief pause here while I mention a few ways that you can help support Pharaoh's House. For example, when you visit my main site, pharaohshouse.com, consider becoming a monthly subscriber for less than $2.25 a month, or make a generous donation, which you'll find on the homepage. Just scroll all the way down to locate the donate button where you can show your support with your generous gift of any amount you can give. Or buy any item from my online shop. Just choose Shop It on the main menu. If you really want to become an active contributor and supporter, consider becoming a Podisode sponsor, or sponsor my news broadcast, The Balanced Reality Report. Also, you can help me rescue abandoned and abused cats by donating to my ongoing fundraiser. We can always use help with supplies like cat supplements, cat food, and visits to the vet. We are really amping up this fundraiser because I need more space for them. Spread the word, share the content, and show your support. Thank you. To get messages out to those who are observant, I sometimes post messages on social media. I posted a meme a few months ago, a visual meme, on social media. Many of you reposted or shared that meme. It featured a sepia image of an old Olympia typewriter with the words, "When the para becomes the normal, 2021. Many of you probably thought that this meant January 1st was the beginning of something. Perhaps you missed what I spoke at the beginning of the previous Podisode, released in early April. I said greetings and welcome to the new year. So-called 2021 officially started in April, around the spring equinox. That would mean that the para now becomes the normal. So what did I mean by all that? Basically, what was once relegated to spookism, occult conspiracy, supernatural, or otherwise referred to as paranormal, it is now undeniable reality. More obvious broad daylight paranormal, unnatural events occur as this year progresses. If you sought validation for your personal paranormal experiences, this year is it. All the rituals and events have been building up to this. So what does this mean for everyday folk? It's simple. It means get your mind prepared, absorb, and learn the correct ways to maintain your sanity and security and your knowledge. Governments, militaries, policing authorities are not ready for this, but they'll put on a good front, as they have with many other major life-changing events. Inoculating naive, gullible, fearful minds with more propaganda only deepens the ignorance and false sense of security. The truth as to what is really happening is the best and only way to help people safeguard themselves. There's an old saying with a multi-layered meaning which most have misunderstood. It goes like this: that which is in the dark shall be revealed in the light. So-called paranormal apocalypse is not some kind of new phenomena, nor is it a new era in the course of this world's timeline. It is, however, an occurrence that is as frequent as seasons or the passing of so-called comets. The time is now. There are many revealing quotes from various old sources which foretell of this hour and time. For example, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open." Luke 8:16-17. "Know, and ye shall unveil. Find the deep buried wisdom, and be master of darkness and light." That's Tablet 8, Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Some say such quotes come from questionable sources. Perhaps, but there are other quotes and stories from various ancient cultures that all mention this same time. Some use parable or cryptic wording. For astute minds, the clues and answers are not that hard to realize nor fathom. Be wise in all things. Parents and guardians, listen and observe all signs, subtle or obvious, with the youths in your care, especially boys and young males, since they are under attack in many ways. This is not the time to allow pride or grudges or any emotions to deter reconciliation within your families. With one caveat: force no one to see reason. Stay clear of those who refuse to do so. Avoid squabbles and arguments. This is no time to prove how right you are or how wrong someone else is, even if they are. Many of you know that I utilize dreams, accessing them to locate pathways for reparative purposes, physical, mental, and spiritual. For student clients who have worked with me in the past, you above all others know some of the methods I employ using dream management. In this segment, you'll absorb to learn how to utilize daydreams to calm nerves, focus attentiveness, and set your body on a homeostasis path. This is especially helpful for overcoming addictions, recuperating from chemotherapy, or just struggling with difficult decisions. Before we start, make necessary adjustments or have someone assist you in doing the following. Place a rolled small towel under the nape of your neck so that your spine is in an unstrained position. You can also place a pillow under your knees. Room temperature should be mild to slightly warm, not hot nor cool or cold. Shall we begin? Equilibrium tone. Soothing tune. If reclining on a bed or sofa or floor, bring palms of your hands gently together. Rest them at your groin region. Shut your eyelids. Breathe steadily and easily through your nostrils. Roll your eyes upwards towards the back of your brain. Hold them in that position for an 8 count. While holding, click tongue on roof of your mouth in succession 9 times. Pause for count of 4. Mind your breathing. Keep it soft, smooth, deep, and always through the nostrils. Repeat the previous pattern. Pause for count of 3. Repeat the pattern. Pause for count of 2. Repeat the pattern. And pause. Remain still. Eyes are in the normal position and still shut. Some of you may experience color patterns or sparks of light, while others will notice a refined sense of hearing and possibly sense of smell also. Visualize your hands only. Feel the palm of each hand softly touching the other until they become one in sensation. At this point, should the sensation of drifting into sleep happen, allow it to occur, but maintain the sense of now and awareness that you are about to nap or sleep. Rest for 20 to 30 minutes uninterrupted. Do this daydream pattern formation 4 to 8 times per week, at least once or twice per day. If for any reason you are unable to move and perform these movements, utilize your imagination and visualization power. Rest now. You can thank me later. Use of any third-party audio clip content is within compliance with the terms of fair use and the Copyright Act of 107. This report has been presented for informational and educational purposes only. If you wish to use copyrighted material from this report for purposes which go beyond fair use, you must obtain permission from the copyright owner.